Focusing now, Nick, on Arsenal against Brighton in the Premier League this weekend. My big question to you is this the weekend that Arsenal regain top spot in the Premier League? So hear me out here. It was a brilliant win away at Newcastle last time out, and it just felt like the title race isn't over, and that was huge for confidence and belief. Obviously, City play first this weekend. They play Everton away, which is potential upset, I think, all over that, given that Everton will be feeling confident after that big win against Brighton, and City have got the Real Madrid game sandwiched either side of this. But what most impressed you about this Arsenal team, and do you think tea time, as we like to say over here, on Sunday evening, Arsenal will be back on top of the Premier League table, or is that a bit much?
I think it's a bit much. I think City, because if City had been leading the table all year and Arsenal been hanging out with them neck and neck, and this might sound goofy to say, I might be a little bit more worried about Man City, losing focus or whatever. But I think because they've been chasing all year, this has become a target for them. And there's something mental that you can't really replace. I know it doesn't make sense to say, oh, this team is better because they have, this mental edge. But I think the Champions League and the Premier League have been a target for them. And they've able to not turn themselves into underdogs, but turn themselves into, oh, people don't think we can do this. We're not the sexy thing right now. And I expect them to continue to show up. I think they'll handle their business in the Premier League. It's just a matter of will that potentially affect their Champions League? And if anything is going to get Man City, and I know we're not talking about Man City, we're talking about Arsenal Brighton here, but if anything is going to get Man City, it might be if they are eliminated from the Champions League and they have to deal with the fallout from that.
Yeah, definitely. I think in terms of Arsenal, though, I've been so impressed by Odegaard and just the way that he has driven this team on through, adversity. You'd have to say they had the league in their hand for a long time, and then to kind of let it slip the way it did, you can tell how frustrated he was during games, but scored another beauty against Newcastle. I mean, I think you said it in our group chat, just how many goals that he's scored this season, the assists. Kind of a contender for Premier League Player of the Year. I think it might go to Erling Haaland because of the goal record, of course, but Martin Odegaard kind of epitomizes the spirit of this Arsenal team, and that's what gives me some belief that they're going to win out. I think they'll win out the rest of the Premier League season, and it's all about if City slip up a couple of times, then Arsenal are champions. So that's why I kind of believe that Arsenal are going to be right there until the very, very end of the season, and they deserve to be. In terms of Brighton, I mean, they can hurt you on the counter, but they'll really be smarting, won't they, after that shock 5-1 home defeat against Everton last time out. They were so good against Man United, got the late win. You thought, here we go, the top four is really on for the Seagulls. And then they put out, it was just a bit of a naive display, right, against Everton. They were hit on the counter, defensively a bit all over the place. You think maybe a bit of overconfidence kind of crept into the Seagulls there? They've run out of steam a little bit because they had a great season, but it is still relatively quite a small squad of players they have.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I would go with ran out of steam. And I think it might have been overconfidence in the opponent. I don't know that they expected Everton to show that well. I mean, there were some moments with Calvert-Lewin for Everton where you were reminded of how good he can be when he's healthy. And obviously he's missed so much time, and who knows the last time we've seen him truly at 100%, but he looked that way. When I think about Brighton, I see that in them a club that is probably realizing that they're not going to be able to sneak up on everybody. But I don't think they realized it until after this game. And looking back to Arsenal now, I think they'll be back and properly geared up for that. They've had some bouts over the years. I know Mopé's not there anymore, but there were some real scraps between Arsenal and Brighton. And I expect both of these teams to, pardon the half pun, be very bright and ready for this. And I think this game will look a lot like the fun Arsenal-Newcastle match we watched.
Yeah, I think so. And don't forget, Brighton have already won away at the Emirates this season in the League Cup. They won 3-1 there. Welbeck, Matoma was on the score sheet. So they performed pretty well against Arsenal, I feel like, over the last few seasons, and matches up nicely with them being pretty good on the counter as well. Arsenal will look to impose themselves, but if they leave any gaps, you got to feel like Brighton will definitely make the most of that. And I think they had a bit of an off day against Everton when it come to finishing, but they just got a bit unlucky. I don't know if it's much more than a bit of a one-off weird game in this very one-off weird season that we're having across the Premier League. What kind of key battles do you see deciding this one? I mentioned there, Matoma's been excellent, sort of cutting it off the left. Do you think him against Ben White is kind of a key battle in this game? And maybe in midfield as well, right? With Alexis McAllister, can the likes of Jorginho or is Thomas Partey a better pick? There's some selection issues there for Mikel Arteta to figure out.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's going to come down to what he decides to do. I think the defenders are capable of keeping up with Brighton. Obviously, I think the attackers can find their way in, but the midfield is going to tell us a whole lot. If there's anything we've talked about more this year outside of the quote unquote big six team than Caicedo and McAllister and what Brighton is able to do, whether it be personnel wise or tactically in the middle of the park, I don't know if there has been, a bigger conversation topic outside of the big six. So Brighton to me has an opportunity to hang with Arsenal. I think the Gunners and Man City, I think both teams might roar down the stretch, but I'm looking at this Brighton team as one who's not going to wilt in this scenario because they can control and even overwhelm at times the middle of the park.
A few weeks ago when I was looking at this game, I was thinking this is upset potential here. Brighton, against Arsenal away, and then they also have to play Man City at home late in the season. It might still be, but I just feel like if this game was a few weeks ago, then it would have been much more potential for an upset. And I think Brighton maybe, my opinion, I think they've just run out of steam a little bit, and maybe a little bit of lack of confidence is kind of slipped in. Maybe in some games in recent weeks, they've been a little bit up and down. So I think it's actually a good time for Arsenal to play against Brighton this weekend. So score prediction wise, I'm going to go for 3-1 to Arsenal. What do you think about that?
I'll go 2-1 to Arsenal as well. The home field being a little bit too much for Brighton.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's a good shout. All right, we're looking forward to this one. Arsenal against Brighton this Sunday. Head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com for all the latest how to watch information, preview, team news, live analysis and reaction. Let's see if the Gunners, at the end of the weekend, if they win, Man City slip up, they could be back on top of the Premier League. That is the carrot dangling in front of them. And for Brighton, of course, they haven't given up on top four, but they also have, of course, an historic bid to try and qualify for Europe for the first time. So the Seagulls always seem to surprise us throughout the season. Let's see if they got another one up there. I was going to say sleeve, but up their wing, right?
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. For even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you over there.